So, our archives, we talk about them a lot on our tours, we talk about them a lot when we're standing up here. Our archives are upstairs. So, if you look around the top level of balconies, behind all of those are our archives and our collection. All of these little things are metal cabinets. They look like that. And these, we have 32 of them, plus flat files, which is the one on the bottom right. And we have made every attempt to try and keep them not visible from the floor down here, so it doesn't look like a lot of clutter up there. But we have 32. We were able to purchase them for just over $8,000. They are archivally, they are sold by an archival dealer. And inside of them, it looks a little bit like this. You'll see the top has some light blue colored boxes, all of these guys. Those are archivally stable boxes. That's what they use at the National Archives. Banker boxes are not. So we have some of our collections has been protected and put in archival storage. Some of it is waiting to be taken care of because, as you may know, different types of paper, different levels of acidity, and alkaline content will interact and degrade each other. So depending on what the material it is, it really needs to be in a stable environment surrounded by archivally stable materials. And we were fortunate, all of these boxes that we do have that are archival were donated several years ago in 2010. We had a project called the Washington Angels Project, where a group of archivists in the Washington, D.C. area chooses a couple of archival collections, and one day a year they go out and they do this mass preservation effort. And so they came, they donated all of their time. We had about 15 professional archivists. They donated all the materials, and we got a lot of work done that day. But as you can probably imagine from looking at what we have in the back, the archives it's a fragile environment. Even though everything is stored in cabinets, there's also a lot of stuff kind of on the floor because it's too big to fit in a cabinet. And we'd love to take people up there and show it off, but it's really just not quite possible at the time. So hopefully someday we'll be able to have an open house or something. But I wanted to back up a little and talk about how our collections all started. It started with our stuff. Our co-founder, Rich Schaefer, he grew up in the neighborhood. If you came for our 25th anniversary talk, he was one of the speakers. And he really was interested in the site, and he's an amateur historian, and he started collecting stuff that went with the seminary. And it grew, and he founded SOS, and he donated all of his collections to us. So it formed the basis of our book. We also have a lot of Army things he collected, as well as other SOS folks have donated to us over the years. So we have a pretty complete record of the site, not so much on the hotel era, unfortunately. And our collection, of course, includes all of our photographs, which are in the tens of thousands probably, which document the history of the site, not only historically when the girls were here, when the Army was here. It's many years of decline. Of course, it's regeneration with the new construction, etc. We also, I would say, between a third and a half of our collection comes from the Alumni Association. They were incredibly active. They were responsible for the school keeping going during the down years of the Depression. They were very social girls who became social women, and they had reunions every year. This is a picture of one of them. I believe it's from the 30s. And when they formally disbanded fairly recently because of their, unfortunately, dwindling numbers, they donated their entire collection to us, which included not only a lot of personal stuff, but more of the records of the organization and a lot of their bulletins, which in this is a whole box full of their alumni bulletins, which were quarterly. And they traced what the students were up to at the time, or who they got married to, so you can really follow them after they left the school. So 4 times a year, every year starting in the 19-teens. We also are fortunate to have received a number of donations. As I said, the Alumni Association was our initial donor, and then we've gotten several collections from individual alumni as well. Their descendants have been very generous as well. You know, if they've got their mom's or their grandmother's photo album, they know that she went here and they want to give it to us. So we've been very fortunate. Folks also find these things in antique stores, as you know, and thrift stores and at various places, and they'll look up the history of the place, they'll find our website, and they'll contact us and say, hey, do you want this? Sometimes for sale, sometimes they'll donate. We did get a recent donation of it was either a photo album or a scrapbook from Scotland. I don't know how it ended up there, but they were happy to send it to us. And of course, there's eBay, everybody's favorite collecting site. So this is one of the many items we have gotten off eBay. It is a fabric sample for the uniforms. So you could choose which fabric you wanted your uniform to be made out of. And soon after we acquired this, we actually were able to acquire a uniform as well. And that's the green linen color. And of course, there have been a couple of lucky finds over the years. The boot, which is currently in our office on display, was found, I think it was in the senior house, either behind a wall or in an attic, but it just sort of turned up. And so it looks like it dates from around the turn of the 20th century. So we assume it belonged to one of the girls in senior house. And on the right, we have had that piece for a number of years, a couple of decades, but we never knew what it was. Until the Army turned the property over to the developer, we discovered that there was a cache of sculpture and sort of broken pieces of sculpture, and we were able to put it together. It's the Hand of Hope, who's over by the townhouses now. It's what was holding the anchor up. So that indeed was a lucky find. So what's in our collection? I've showed you a couple things, but I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty. You're going to be overwhelmed. I tried to condense it, but I've got like tons of images per slide. So, but I'm excited about our collection. We have such cool stuff. It's hard not to talk about it and show it off. First, however, what's not in our collection? I should tell you that we have no official school records. We do not have anything like enrollment lists or the employment records, pay stubs, nothing relating to the school itself, no business accounts or report cards. Unfortunately, none of that made it through the years, so we have no access to that. But what we do have are many of the school's publications. You've seen a couple in the back. They're view books, catalogs, yearbooks. They've been collected over the years. And these are really helpful because we can piece together information using those alumni bulletins and the yearbooks to figure out really who went here and what life was like when you were a student here. So there were a number of publications that were really targeting, they were really promotional, self-promotional. They were trying to get students to come here. So the catalogs were very self-important, and they were very, they explained the school's philosophy and what they would expect of their students, and please come here, it's wonderful in our environment, things like that. View books were much the same, and then just an array of promotional materials that just ran the gamut. I believe we've got one here that's like 4 things every girl should know about National Park Seminary. And then for the students, there were yearbooks, which were not meant for public distribution. And then for events here on the campus, there were programs for the shows and plays, invitations, menus, etc. And we'll see some of those. The catalogs, and we have a couple of duplicates. We have duplicates in our library, so we're able to show these off and handle them without doing too much damage. So take a look. You can flip through the pages. The catalogs are our #1 source of information. They were written by the school, and as I said, they were a little bit self-promoting, but they really do tell you what the philosophy of education was, what the girls did every day. There's a sample class schedule. They publish them nearly every year, so we get a sense of how the school changed over the years. And they're rich with photographs, and you'll see here a couple of the hundreds that are in the catalogs. And view books are essentially the same thing. They're a little bit thinner and a little bit larger, so they were sort of large format, and they started putting them in color in the later years. But they were really to show off the school and make it look like you had to go here. If you were a teenage girl, you would look at this and say, Mom, Dad, fork up some money. This is one of my absolute favorite photographs of all, in all the hundreds of thousands of photos we have. This is back here at the fireplace in the ballroom, and the girls are sort of sitting around having a chit-chat about boys or something. Some of the promotional materials I was talking about, letters from parents, things that, you know, not just the girls would see and be enticed by, but their parents, more importantly, would also see, you know, how the school compared to other schools and that type of information. Yearbooks, pretty typical. These are really fun to flip through, not only for the inscriptions to see what the girls were writing to each other, but to just see how the fashion and the hairstyles changed over the years. It's pretty interesting. And for in-house publications, I mean, I can't even tell you how many of these there are. There was a printing press here in the building, on the campus. So all of these types of small things were printed here on the campus. And I swear they must have run that thing 24 hours a day because they had events almost nightly. So there were plays and musicals and musical performances at the Odeon. Each student upon graduating would probably, if she was in the music program, would have a recital. So she'd have a piano recital or a voice recital. So, and every single one would have a program printed up for it. We talked last time, not last time, two lectures ago, we talked about the athletics program. And there's a plethora of publications that went with all of the events, the swim meets, the riding meets, the field day, et cetera. So, and we have these from multiple years as well. So just lots of fun things. These are two examples of sorority letterhead. So each of the sororities had note paper like this, and this is a formal invitation as well. And of course, the menu for Thanksgiving. Here's an example of a program. So it wasn't just they were themed to go with the production. So the Mikado obviously has an Asian theme, and it lists all of the performers and the cast and crew. And next, I wanted to talk about things that are not printed by the school, but have been collected over the years. Photo albums, and we do have a couple in the back, some of our less fragile ones because they are in a fairly precarious state. But we are fortunate to have some of quite old. I think 1899 is the oldest one that we have. One of the ones we have in the back is from 1906, so it's also quite early. And these are nice because if you noticed in the catalogs, the pictures of the girl were very stiff and very posed, and very formal. And the photographs in the photo albums are the opposite. It's the girls having fun, you know, they're joking around and having a good time and showing what life was like, you know, outside the classroom. So they really complete the picture of what the school was like. And here are some examples of exactly that. I mean, the photo albums are just a hoot. We also have a couple of albums, photo albums that are cyanotypes. These are basically the same printing process. This is my Wikipedia knowledge for you, because I had to learn this. But Wikipedia says that cyanotypes were photographs that were printed much the same as blueprints were printed, so that's why they're blue, hence the word cyan. And so, unfortunately, cyanotypes are susceptible to fading, very bad fading when they're exposed to light. So they have to be kept covered. However, if you close them up and keep them covered in a stable condition, they actually will regain some of their color. But each time they regain a little bit less. So these are among our more fragile photographs just because their lifespan is limited. So we hope to make a record of these digitally so that we don't have to keep opening the album when we want to look at them. Scrapbooks. These are my favorite type of item in our archives, I believe, probably my favorite, because they are just chock full of fun stuff. And if you had a chance to look at the back table, you will see a couple of examples. I mean, these were individual girls' scrapbooks. This was very popular from, you know, the late 1800s through probably the 1950s. It was kind of like a diary, but a three-dimensional diary. And the girls would just stick whatever in it. Anything that had any value to them, or was personal or important, some memento, they would stick it in their scrapbook. A lot of them were labeled, so we know what the items are. A lot of them were not. And as we'll see, the problem with scrapbooks is that they're just so much stuff in them. raises a whole host of conservation issues because you've got, you know, different types of paper and different types of materials all sandwiched together in what is on some of the thinnest paper possible. And here's another image. And these are difficult because these silly envelopes, which is nice, they save the envelope, they're very thorough in their collecting, but the glue on the envelope sticks back to itself, so we actually can't access a lot of the things in the scrapbook because they're resealed and we will rip them if we try to open them. So we don't even know what we have. We have maybe 12 to 15 scrapbooks in our collection, and we haven't even been through them all. And of course, we have a fairly decent collection of letters donated by families over the years and the alums themselves, mostly from students or to students here, not so much the administration. But they range from the mundane to the really juicy. You know, everything from, hey, Dad, I need $5 for a new textbook, to, Mom, I met the man of my... It's a lot of fun to read these letters. And we have several hundred. I don't know that I'd say we have 1,000, but we have several hundred letters in our archives. None of them stored archivally, by the way. Now on to more three-dimensional stuff, and some of this is back on the table there. I'll just go through these quickly. We don't have a lot. This is about the extent of our collection of tableware. But National Park Seminary certainly had its own cutlery and its own dish sets. Oh, it's not me, good. You know, that's what the girls and the faculty dined off of every night. You'll see this one is for the Alpha sorority, which is the bungalow right on the circle. So each sorority, we presume, had its own. This is the only one we have. And this is a mug. I don't know if it's ceremonial or what, but it was for the castle sorority, the Beta Castle sorority. So you can just sort of imagine it might have been used in some initiation. You know, they would drink the blood, you know. I mean, you can just make up stories. A lot of architectural elements. These are the types of things we have stored on the floor up there. Obviously, they don't fit in our cabinets. This is the top of a capital from the music hall, from the last building on the end, the 2-unit condo. This is the original one, a broken one. So we have kept it and stored it because we can, because we feel like we should keep a record of these things. The capitals that are there are mostly replacements. This is a window. The size is, I would say it's almost as wide as this. So it's this big semicircular arched window that came from the Arts and Sciences building, which no longer exists. These doesn't look like much, but to us, it's cool. These are the chains that held up the drawbridge of the castle. The entrance to the castle was via a drawbridge onto the walk bridge across, or the drive bridge across campus. And those were the chains that held it open. So. And this is a lamp from the inside of President's house. Maybe we can do some restoration work on that in the future. We have 2 of those just sitting in boxes at the moment. Oh, we've got, if you know Bonnie Rosenthal, our executive director, you know she's a bit of a scavenger and she'll never throw anything away, which is excellent for our record-keeping purposes. But it's thanks to Bonnie that we have so many of these things that would have otherwise disappeared, been stolen, or just destroyed when the new developers took over. This is a sample of wallpaper. It's just a little piece that we have. It's from the pagoda. It's very Asian-inspired. So when they redid their wall surfaces in there, they found a little patch of it, and we said, "Can we have it? Can we have it?" And they generously let us have it. These are random bits of tile and Bonnie's handwritten notes explaining where each piece came from. These are mushroom tiles. I don't know why you would want a mushroom tile, but there you have it. And an escutcheon, probably from the hotel, from a room leading into a hotel suite, which later would have become a dorm suite and then classrooms after that. So we have one of the original door fixtures. Trophies, which if you came to the athletics talk, you probably got your fill of these, but we do have a few of them. These two, I think, are the ones that are on display in the back. A lot of medals, individual sports medals, group trophies. And this little guy, the photo doesn't do it justice, but it's this big, and it has a little engraving on it for, I believe she won the bowling tournament that year. Clothing. I showed you one of the uniforms that we've collected. We also have one other, and it's this deep, rich color, and this one is silk. The other was linen. We have a dress from senior day. On senior day, these girls wore the school colors, which were pink and purple, and carried bouquets of sweet peas, which were the school's flower. And so we do have one. It's not a very good photo. It doesn't do it justice. We actually have two. One is she obviously sat on the ground or was dragged it through something. It's much dirtier. This is the one that's in better condition. But it's a nice lace dress. And then this was a nice little find. That is a uniform for a dental technician when the Army was here. The Army Dental Clinic was upstairs. So we found a couple of those. And Bonnie collected it, as she should. Furniture, these remnants we've collected or found on the property. That's one of the dining room chairs, and that is one of the students' dressers, which has been painted white. They were originally just varnished wood. Jewelry, there's a display in the back, but we've got some other pieces in our collection upstairs. And my lovely hand model, Frank, is showing off this ring. Pins. This little pin up at the top is, I mean, it must be 1.5 centimeters. It's tiny. I can't, and it has the little letters of the sorority right on it. NPS on the flag, the colors of the school, and then Pi Beta Nu was the castle. That one is diamond or diamond-like stones. And these are all bracelets in the bottom right. More jewelry. This little box, you can sort of get a scale from Frank's thumb. These pins are tiny. But they're all little emblems that relate to the school, either, I think there's an honor society one, there's sorority ones, NPS ones, etc. And that lovely pin over here, key-shaped pin, is one of my favorites. We have a video collection as well, archivally stored in our very expensive refrigerator. It has some system where it won't leak water on the, it's either self-defrosting or not self-defrosting, and I never get it straight. But it supposedly doesn't collect ice in it and won't drip water on the contents of the refrigerator. So oops. So I will. Yeah, it goes with the ice right here in the ice box. So those are all our videotapes that we have, not all of them. There are, I believe, quite a few still in Mr. Devoni's house, our videographer extraordinaire. But we have quite a few, and those are fragile, and they do decay or deteriorate over time. So we have them stored in the refrigerator at an archivally appropriate temperature, so that, and everything is double bagged in case the power goes out and we do get some water. The fire is not our video. I believe this came from the news channel. It's just a freeze frame from the news coverage when the Odeon burned down in the 1990s, which was a tragic day for SOS. We've filmed all of our talks here. Those are digital, but our older things, we've got footage from alumni reunions, alumni events, groundbreaking ceremonies. Bonnie has been interviewed many times for various news programs and PBS programs. So we have a lot of video, and we're very fortunate that our former board member, Steve Devoni, is a professional video dude. And it knows everything there is to know and has documented the history of the site, and he lives across the street. So before people were living here, when it was derelict, I mean, if there was something going on, Steve was on the first call, and he'd run over here and scare off the intruders or chase the kids home or grab his camera and start filming. And then there's a lot of other stuff, just a lot of other stuff. This window is from the hallway in the apartments. This I had never seen before. This is a bunch of little bits and pieces. They're all meticulously labeled. It's like, left front door of Maine. I mean, it's we don't know what it is, it's just bits. But they've been collected, and at some point we might have another lucky find and be able to put things together. You can see we've got some fragments of things. These are pieces of tin ceiling. That's a hat pin, which is stored in a vertical file in a file box. And then our globe. I love our globe. It's only recently been sort of uncrated. It was in a crate for years in storage, Army storage, and we weren't really even sure that's what was in the crate, but we opened it up recently so we can move it up to our archives. So that is our lovely wooden globe. So why? Why do we collect all this stuff? Why do we have it? Why are we keeping it? Well, it's our mission. Save Our Seminary's mission statement is to restore buildings, the grounds, sculpture, and artifacts associated with National Park Seminary Historic District. So we've done that. We continue to do that, and we do it by sharing our photo collections with the developers and owners. All of the sorority house owners I know were given photographs to help them with their restoration, and we certainly gave a lot of help to the main developer of the campus. Because a lot of the architectural details were missing, and certainly there was a big gap in knowledge of the history of the site, and we, I think, made them believe in the importance of the site, which helped them to want to restore it to a higher level. So these are a couple photographs of the dining room from the school days at the top and the Army days down below. But this is what the dining room looked like when the developer took it over. And I don't know that they would have peeled off the acoustic tile on the ceiling or just covered over it, because the easier thing to do would be just cover it over. But we went to them and said, this was a mahogany ceiling. These are beautiful wood ceilings. You need to restore them. And these beautiful box beams. And they did. So we consider that a victory. Another victory is the Mission Sorority House across the street. This is what it looked like for many, many years. I don't think anybody knew it looked much different. But it doesn't have a whole lot of Spanish or Southwestern flair there. Here is the historic photo at the top, and after it was restored back to its original appearance. Looks a little bit more like a mission. So these are all due to our photo collections. Similarly, we've been able to restore sculpture to its rightful position. I mean, we found a lot of these pieces and weren't sure where they went, but because we had such a rich trove of photographs to rely on, we were able to put this guy back where he belongs. And the lion right here being cleaned. This was a mystery for many years. We had this, we called it the three birds. It was not until after owning it for some time that we realized, in looking at our historic photos, that it's a piece of the fountain, because this is what the fountain looked like for decades. And so we were able to discover, hey, we have this piece, and now our fountain is back up and running. Well, it's back up. So in addition to helping restore and guide owners on appropriate treatments for their historic buildings, using our photo collections and our historical knowledge, we like to share it in case you didn't get the gist that, I don't come up here because I hate it. I come up here because I want to talk about the history of the seminary. I like it. And we want to share it with you, especially the residents. This is your heritage. This is, you're part of this too. So we've used all of our collections for publishing our book, for our monthly tours, specialty tours that are arranged for groups or on specific topics. We are pretty regularly invited to give talks off campus as well. Chevy Chase Historical Society had us out not too long ago. We had the Atlas Obscura Society here last weekend, I think, for a tour as well. For our ballroom chats like tonight, we've given talks on everything from the social lives of the students and the sorority houses, the Army history here, the history of the property before it became a hotel and a school, all kinds of things. So we are happy to share our knowledge with you, and that all comes from our archival collection. We also use our collections to put on display. Again, part of our sharing, but also a little bit of decorative flair. This is in our office, which has rotating exhibits in it. And this is currently on the floor upstairs. It's a piece of fence, original fence, and we are hoping to, at some point, hang it as a decorative item just because it's sitting up there, and it's a lovely piece. It's quite large. So that will be a goal for us. We have also ordered 2 museum quality display cases, which cost an arm and a leg, I gotta tell you. They were $5,000 for 2 display cases because they are museum quality. The person spearheading all of our archival work is he's a conservation chemist at the National Gallery of Art. So he gets pretty involved in the technical aspects of the conservation, and he guided our board to pick cabinets that were appropriate. And so our goal will be to install cabinets right outside these doors. So when we have events like this, we will have exhibits that you can look at, hopefully related to that night's talk, maybe changing exhibits, but we're excited that we'll be getting them soon, and we'll be able to share our items from our archives that way. And of course, our collections allow us to continue our research. But in order to do that, we have to conserve it properly so that it's around for future generations. And as I mentioned, Christopher Manus is our vice president and also the chemist at National Gallery of Art, and our incredibly dedicated volunteer archivist, Laura DeGaro, who she and Chris have come virtually every Saturday for the past 2 years to catalog our collections. Laura is a professional archivist, and there they are doing their work. And here is what our cataloging system looks like. It's called Past Perfect. It's what museums and historical societies typically use to inventory what they have. And they've been inputting all of our records. They've gone through the entire collection once, so everything has an accession number and everything is known about, and it has a location information somewhere on here. It gives a location for which cabinet number and which shelf it's on. And they're going back through now and actually not just labeling box of letters. It will be box of letters from so-and-so to so-and-so, or it's not just a box of catalogs, it's catalog from 1919, catalog 1920, catalog. So they're going through a second pass to get much more information put into the database. Let's see. So, oh, and I did want to mention a couple. So this is what it looks like when you have had professional archivists work on your collection. Everything gets individually wrapped in this acid-free tissue, tied up with these cloth cotton strings, and put in these archival boxes. Another thing that Laura and Chris have single-handedly been working on is scanning our letters. They are, at the moment, just over 500 letters have been scanned. Not pages, but letters. So, and they each are multiple pages. So we will have a digital record, once again, so we don't have to handle all of these fragile items. And I'll talk a little bit more about the letter project. I did also want to mention one of our other recent accomplishments, in addition to getting through, after 2 years, the first swing through the archives and cataloging all. Our intern, Rebecca, is here somewhere. She was manning the table. She has recently finished a project to basically organize, catalog, and label hundreds of printed photographs. Before the days of digital, slides and photos were what we had. And these are the photos from the 80s and 90s and earlier 2000s that really record the history of the property over those years and the decline that it went through. So she volunteered and has recently finished that. So we have Rebecca to thank for a huge chunk of labor. And then we have a couple of long-term conservation goals. And we have prioritized them. We have a committee, the collections committee. The first priority, and the reason that they're long-term, is because these are actually quite expensive conservation efforts. Going through and cataloging is time, it takes a lot of time, but it doesn't take a lot of money. These are longer-term goals because we don't have the funds to do them. But these are boxes, and we have several of these full of rolled photographs. Most of them are panoramics. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. But they are so fragile because they've been rolled so tightly that you can't actually unroll them. So we don't know what they are for the most part. We cheated and unrolled one, which was a bad idea because you can see the tear. And it was, we're judging from the car that's over here that it was from the 1920s, looking across the Glen towards the campus. And this is a little blow up of it with its label on it. So we have boxes of these, and in each box are dozens of photographs. They are panoramics of the campus like this, which would be incredibly helpful for us understanding the history of the buildings and the site. There are a lot of class photos, and there are a lot of alumni photos as well. What we do know, no, not there yet. What we do know is that Chris has initiated discussions with a photo conservation person, and it's about $100 to flatten them, each one, and then it's about $500 to mend minor tears and remove adhesives. The prices would, of course, go up with more substantial damage. And then after you've got it flattened, you have to figure out, are you going to frame it or how do you store it so that it is stable? So that's going to be a big challenge for us, and it's a high priority because of the photographs are just such a sensitive type of medium. The bridge, the surface of the bridge was wood. Yeah, during the school days, it was wood. The Army put asphalt on it in several iterations, which is why it ultimately collapsed, because it wasn't meant to hold that weight. Our second highest priority are the photo albums. Again, photos are really sensitive. And the ones that we have back here are only here because they're in the best condition. We weren't all on board with having all of these displays because of the fragility of the collection. But you'll see, they should look like this, but a lot of them look like that because the adhesives haven't held. And so we have labels and we don't know what the photos go with. So before all of the adhesives fail, we need to sort of get these taken care of. Either by conservation or in the more immediate sense, we can take a photograph of each one and have a digital record. You won't be able to touch and feel it, but you can enlarge on your screen, which is actually quite helpful, rather than using a magnifying glass or something like that. So we are going to be, as one of our long-term goals, initiating copy stand photography of albums. And a copy stand is a big contraption with lights attached to it and flatteners, professional flatteners that do no harm to the book. And you sort of lay everything out flat, and you have a camera that's on a stable screw type thing, and you take a picture, and then you flip to the next page, take a picture. So you have a complete record, and it's done in a very professional format. And we actually bought a copy stand. So we have a nice $300 copy stand that's never been used. So we're going to do that soon. I mentioned cyanotypes before and how they're fragile and they fade when they get in the light, and their color does come back, but with some ultimate loss of the color. Their other problem is that they react negatively to alkaline, and that's the problem with a lot of things in archival collections, is that the tape works well with some kind of photo or paper and it doesn't work well with another. Well, this kind of paper worked fine for the ones that are still blue. The ones that were cut out from something else used to be blue. I think they were mounted on something and then they were cut around, and whatever they were mounted to contained alkaline. And this is what it winds up looking like, and you cannot get the color back. So we have a lot of photographs that look like that, and we have some that are on their way to looking like that. So it's important that we get these documented before we lose the image entirely. Scrapbooks, same sort of gist as photo albums in terms of the adhesives. This one shows you, your typical sort of little corner mounts, but then there's also tape, there's glue, there's spit, I don't know. There's just all kinds of things. And I mean, there's every kind of thing in here. This is an ice cream spoon. If you flip through that one in the back, somebody found a peanut in it, stuck on there. A peanut shell. This is a ribbon. That is a candle. We've got a cigarette in one of them taped in there. These are all candy wrappers, so we know what this girl liked to do. And you know, it can be fabric, it can be soap, it could be candle, who knows? And the poor conservationist who has to figure out what is the stable environment for all these different types of materials on the same page is in for a real headache. We do know from reaching out to conservationists that there's a great variety in the costs of per page conservation of the books based on their condition and the types of materials that would need to be conserved. It ranges anywhere from $50 to $500 per page. So that's not an inexpensive undertaking to ultimately stabilize these from deteriorating further. The short-term goal, of course, is to do the copy stand photography so that we do have a digital record. So, not surprisingly, that leads me to volunteer opportunities. We have some audio tapes. A lot of them have already been transcribed, but we have a lot of alumni interviews, both in person and on the phone, that have been transcribed. I believe there are still a few outstanding tapes that need to be transcribed, so anybody who wants something to do might get a giggle or two out of listening to an alum talk about her days here. If anybody has any knowledge of or experience with or the equipment to convert VHS tapes onto a more stable medium, I'm sure our videographer extraordinaire who has another job and can't just do the videography for SOS, would certainly take you up on an offer to assist. We do have a tremendous number, a lot of footage over the years. The copy stand photography, if somebody has experience with that, we have a lot of photography that needs to happen. And then finally is our letter transcription project, and this is something I really wanted to highlight. Do I have a picture? No. Oh, here we go, copy stand photography, right, to take pictures of these things so that we can have access without tearing the pages and you know, damaging them with our oils on our fingers, etc. And here are some letters. And the reason I brought these up is because I mentioned that Chris and Laura have been scanning every single page of letters, up to 500 letters at the moment. And our intent is to have you all help us transcribe these. We are set up, our website is set up so that we have password protected access to these letters. So we will have volunteer training. Anybody who wants to read fun stuff and has a lot of time, you can donate. We will be able to, you'll be able to go onto the website, download or just, you know, open letters to look at and transcribe them for us, because that way we can do searches, we can, you know, really learn more about the history from the girls' perspective. So we think it would be a very enriching addition to our archives. So we have not finalized how we are going to, the technicalities of the website and the password protection access is so that not everybody can just get into the website and read all our letters, because that would sort of spoil the fun. And because we have to control the transcriptions, we would specifically be saying, okay, you do these 2 letters and you do the same 2 letters, and then we will have a person compare them. Because some of the handwriting is really, really difficult to read. And so there are going to be instances where somebody reads one thing and somebody reads something else. So the way that it's done in the field is to have several people read the same letter and transcribe it, and then somebody goes through and does the comparison. So if you're interested, our spearheader of the letter transcription project is none other than Frank Riley in the back, in the tie, and I'm sure he would be happy to take your information, and we should be kicking off that project in the next couple of months.
Those steps are gone, aren't they, in front of the building?
Those are still there.
Are they still there?
Yeah, they're both still there. They look a little different because I think some of these are gone.
Are they on the street side?
No, they're on the
other side?
They're on this side. In addition to our long-term goals and our volunteer our call for volunteers, we also have a couple of short-term conservation opportunities. In nonprofit speak, I'm sure you can figure out what that means. And they're easy. That's why they're short-term. They're fairly cheap. They're, like, as we say, shovel-ready. They're ready. You know, they're projects that can be done fairly immediately. These are the class plaques that hung in the hallway of the apartment building. We have one down here with us tonight. There were nine, and we still have all 9 of them. They're wood, quite heavy, and their condition is in various stages. Some are in good condition, like this one, and then some of them are not so nice condition. So, but they're not that expensive. We've talked to a carpenter who says it would cost about $500 to restore all of them and have them hung. So we think that's something that we could hopefully rely on SOS members and friends to help us reach that goal. Another easy opportunity is our sad globe. He looks so sad, but he's got a base and a stand that he goes on, and the carpenter gave us an estimate, which was fairly reasonable to fix it and get it back up on its base. Of course, we've got parts of the finished surface rubbed off, and we don't know if it would be worth restoring that, but it would certainly cost more than that. But just to have it back up on its base would be lovely, if we could display it somewhere as well. And I think that is just about all I had. We really enjoy showing off our collections. I hope you got a sense from the presentation and what you'll see in the back of the room, the depth and the breadth of what we have upstairs in our archives. Hope we've sparked some interest among you. We invite your participation and your input. You know, this is your history now too, so we want to hear what you think. And of course, Frank is back in the back if you want to talk to him about the letter project. And in the meantime, if you can't wait until we kick off an official campaign, we've sort of toyed around with perhaps launching an Adopt a Scrapbook campaign or a Flatten a Photo campaign. You can always go onto our website on the tab that says Support SOS. There's actually a place where you can donate specifically to the archives. And this is one area that we really could use some help. But I really appreciate you all coming and listening to me blather about what I find really interesting. Some people probably think it's a bore, but I love it, and I hope you all enjoyed it as well. So thank you all for coming.